Hi, it's Fee Jameson Folland. Have you ever been curious about, or maybe had people ask you, why we need to take supplements? Or maybe you've wondered what some of the USANA products can actually help you or people you know with? Well, this resource is for you. As a qualified osteopath and a lifestyle consultant, and having run 3 of my own health centres plus a corporate wellness business, I've really done my homework on the most effective ways for us to look after our own health. And I've found that supplementing with the right nutrients is one of the most important tools that we can use to maximize our health. Now, there are many options out there, and hands down, USANA is the best that I've found. Now, ever since 2002, I've been using the USANA products, and I recommend them to anyone who's keen to optimize their healthy lifestyles as well. So it's time to pin back your ears and give yourself the next 45 minutes or so to really absorb this information. It's so going to help you understand the reasons that we actually need to supplement and the ways that the USANA products actually tick all the boxes for you and for those you know. So I do recommend that you grab a pen and paper or maybe your tablet to take notes as we go. All right, so we're going to talk first of all, as you can see, about why to use the USANA products. And it's really neat because there are 5 simple steps that we're going to go through to actually help explain that process. You can see them all here. We've got the problem, the main challenge that each of us are facing. Then we've got the cause of that, which again we'll go through in detail. We've got the solution, so the thing that we actually need to be using to help us with that challenge. And the supplementation side of things. And the reason for that, I don't know about you, but that's something that I was wondering about, I was curious about. What is the reason that we'd need to supplement? Because I wasn't convinced when I first came across USANA. And then the reason, and the reasons, in fact, that USANA makes the best solution, hands down. Okay, so let's start off at the beginning, which is the problem itself. And the clearer that we can be with this, the more we're going to be able to help others. And some of you may have actually had either first-hand or second-hand experience from somebody you know, maybe even somebody who's related to you who's been affected by degenerative disease. And I can really relate because my dad actually was diagnosed when I was 21 and he was just 50, and he was a very young 50. 50 is not old at all, but he was a very young 50-year-old and very sprightly, very fit. He hardly had any grey hairs on his head, kept himself very well as far as we could see from the outside. And that was my first really understanding, or my first insight into how there can be processes going on inside our body that we may not even be able to see from the outside that can be causing big problems when it comes to the quality of our health and how our health systems are working, not only now, but particularly in terms of the long term when it comes to our health. So when it comes to this degenerative disease, think of it a little bit like, this is just to really simplify things, it's a little bit like we're rusting from the inside. And that process is happening in different areas of our body. It's happening just by simple fact that we're human, and by the ways that our body stays healthy, this causes this effectively rusting effect. I'll talk about that more in a second. But these degenerative diseases are becoming epidemic in their proportions. More and more people are being affected all the time. If you look at these numbers here, it's pretty shocking. And it helps me understand the reason why there was heart disease so close in my family. In fact, we discovered that I'd inherited similar challenges to my dad back when I was 21. I was very fortunate because I got a heads up, which meant that when USANA came along, it was really valuable for me to be able to spot that actually there was, it was probably something it was worth me looking at. So we talked about heart disease already in relation to what my dad experienced. Look at the numbers here. And unfortunately, these numbers are growing all the time. We've got stroke, which is also cardiovascular. We've got cancer. And again, that's something that unfortunately we're hearing more about today. And respiratory disease and diabetes. So these are all reasons that people are not only being affected health-wise, but it's actually causing this premature death. Why? I talk about the cause. I talked about rusting from the inside. And this process, we can think of, the sort of technical term for it is oxidation. Now, what's actually going on with oxidation? Well, one way to think about it, so your takeaway from this session, it's just something really worth jotting down, is imagine in your mind, imagine what happens if you were to cut an apple. In fact, have a go at this. Have a go at this today when you get into the kitchen. If you cut an apple open and you haven't noticed what happens before, try it out. Because when you leave it on the side, what will happen is what you can see in front of you here on the slide. It will go from being that beautiful white colour in terms of the flesh, and gradually it will go brown. And this browning is like that rusting that I mentioned. So that browning is completely normal. This is something that you would expect when you see it with carrots, you see it when you make guacamole. And it's like it's going off, the apple is going off, it's aging. And that's something that's happening to us. We're just like the apple in terms of that flesh that you can see there on the inside. It's exactly the same process that's going on in our bodies. It's like we know that we're eventually going to die one day, but that process will get sped up or slowed down according to how much of this oxidation is going on in our bodies. And you can see here there's a lady and really enjoying the beautiful sunshine in this photo. The only thing with that is that she's speeding up the aging process, or would be if she overexposes her skin to the sun over a period of time, because it can literally cause this problem in our skin. And if we're thinking about, what actually, if you're curious like I was, I studied physics as well as biology and chemistry, I was really interested in what was actually going on. And what happens with this oxidation is it causes the molecules in our body. So if you think about the smallest item or the smallest particle that we can divide our bodies up into is actually things like electrons and neutrons and whatnot. But if we're going to think about the smallest entity, it would be an atom. And that atom has got these electrons that I mentioned, which have a charge to them. They've got an electrical charge. And what will happen when our body oxidizes, or these oxidation processes going on, like we saw with the apple, it goes brown because one of those electrons is lost. Okay, so it's like it's knocked off. What that actually does to the molecule is it causes it to be unstable. Okay, so this atom or molecule becomes unstable, like the picture on the right-hand side. And what it then does is it goes and triggers an electron to be affected and effectively knocked off other molecules really close to it. So it actually can go and cause more damage itself. So it's not just that we damage one molecule or atom, it actually can then run rampant and go and cause damage and problems itself. All right, so causes, we've already looked at the lady who was sitting in the sun. So this oxidation, or we can actually think of it as oxidative stress. Let's look at some of these reasons. It's great, they're just popping up for us now. So smoking is a really unfortunate one that sometimes, even if we're not smoking, we can be exposed to secondhand smoke, people smoking. And in fact, the numbers of free radicals, this is that part of the molecule that when that electron has been knocked off that molecule or atom, it causes the production of, the term for that is actually a free radical. So the smoking produces and causes a lot of free radicals for the people who are inhaling the smoke. Diet. So that can be either through an inadequate diet or one that is packed with things like saturated fats that can actually cause oxidative damage to our cells. Medication and treatments, air and water pollutants, again, these are chemicals that can cause that process inside our bodies. Fast foods, I've already mentioned those. And in fact, also by the way that we produce or prepare our food. So when it comes to production, you can see on the right-hand side there, that can be through pesticides. It can be through there not being enough goodies in the soil itself, and therefore we're not getting all the right kind of nutrients in our body to be able to fight this oxidative stress, as well as not taking in enough of them. You see there on the right-hand side, not actually taking enough of the fruits and veggies and the right kinds. Stress. So stress itself, that is a really nasty producer of free radicals in our body. Then we've also got alcohol as another thing that we might be ingesting, contaminants, which we've alluded to already in terms of chemicals we might be exposed to, not exercising enough, so being a bit of a couch potato, or exercising too much. So the interesting thing is that just about everything that we do results in some form of oxidation. Another way to think of that is inflammation. So that's the thing that you feel if, say, you accidentally bruise your arm or something. You can feel if you touch that, or even you can feel it sometimes even without touching it. It feels sore. It's the same thing. It's inflammation. And what this does is it produces more of that, more of these free radicals that we talked about earlier. So it's like, oh my gosh, what can we do?